Hello and welcome to tonight's presentation of OTF Connects, Coming of Age in the Digital Era, presented by Shanna Burns and Ryan Brawl of the 4th R. And tonight is our last session of the 2013-14 school year, and so we're thrilled to be able to finish it up with Shanna and Ryan, and John and Jeff. We're very happy that you are here as well. And on behalf of Sirius Gurhan, who's the administrator and facilitator of the program, again, she extends her thank you to you for being here tonight, and to our facilitators, as well as all the contributions that you've all put in throughout the year. Siri isn't able to join us tonight, but she certainly said to send her best wishes on to all you guys and to enjoy your summer once it comes as well. So we are going to quickly go to our map of Ontario, and so go ahead and grab that clip art tool, the very bottom icon on your tool strip at the left-hand side of your whiteboard. And go to the Common Symbols tab and grab some nice happy fun shape and drop it on the map. And then you can grab your text tool if you wish and type in the town or city you're joining us from tonight. Love the square root symbol. Creativity tonight. Okay, terrific. Let me know if you're done. Okay, Jeff's all good. John, if you have any trouble with the text tool or anything, you can just let us know in the chat where you are joining us from. Okay, I'm going to move along, and here we are for the beginning of our presentation, and I'm going to hand it over to Shanna and Ryan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise. So John and Jeff, thanks for joining us this evening. We'll do this presentation somewhat more formally than we may otherwise, just because of the recording and for the recording purposes, but we certainly welcome any questions that you might have towards the end as well. So our goal this evening is to highlight many of the main issues and pressures that we see in the media, and we also hope to provide, or plan to provide, some strategies and solutions to help youth. In particular, tonight's webinar will look at the representation of youth in the media. We will talk about gender stereotypes and discuss mixed media messages, such as the hypersexualization that we're seeing in the media and media violence. We will review some of the impacts of social media on identity, and we will provide resources, tips, and strategies for helping youth identify and act against these messages.
So we're going to start with a quick test, and I just want you to look at the image on your screen for a second and think to yourself what it looks like. And then I'm just going to ask, when I say what one of the options, if you just raise your hand, it's the third button across, or you can put it in the chat box, whatever you think it looks like. So maybe raise your hand or add in the chat box if you think the image is a duck. And then maybe you could raise your hand or put in the chat box if you think the image is a rabbit. Or raise your hand or put in the chat box if you think that the image could be both, could be a duck or a rabbit. Great. So as you can see, everything is not always what it seems, and it can be either. Some people will see a rabbit, some people will see a duck, but if we point it out, everyone will eventually see both a rabbit and a duck. Which brings us to the point of tonight. As our message says, everything is not always as it seems, and it can never be more true for our children's view of media. And just because we as adults know what they're watching on a reality television show, and we would never think it's real life, it doesn't mean that the messages they're learning from those shows aren't things that they might not want to try, or they might want to try in their lives, especially as they're coming of age and navigating who they are and their identity. And so this exercise kind of shows us that there's always more to every situation than we think, and our goal is to help youth look beyond the content and look beyond everything that they know to kind of learn what should and shouldn't influence them and what they can and can't do as they're growing up in this kind of media-saturated and technology-saturated world.
So the reality is that many of us, and certainly Shanna and I, experienced our coming of age years in a world with far less technology than the current generation. I can clearly recall one phone in the kitchen, and not only did myself and my siblings have to take turns using it, but we had to have all of our conversations in front of our parents. We got the internet, it was, I guess, late in my elementary school years, early high school, and it was dial-up, and it was very slow, and it made that very familiar noise when you were trying to log on, and you had to get off if if somebody needed to use the phone or if a call came in. If I needed to know where my friends were, I just looked down the street and I instantly knew whose house they were at or what they were doing. You could see people outside. How does that compare to today's youth?
Basically, the biggest difference is we all have struggled with our coming of age in our teenage years and trying to figure out who we are and what we stand for or what we stood for. And we made good and bad decisions. We gained and we lost friends. We tried out different clothing and hairstyles and so much more. Kids today are going through the exact same thing. It's no different. The biggest thing is that they're coming of age and struggling for their autonomy and their identity, but they're doing it, with communication online, with media, so much media. So they're doing it in new worlds of communication and friendship, play, and self-expression. If they want to find their friends, they use their cell phone or Instagram or Facebook. If they want to learn something, they're going online. So sure, we had this stuff growing up also, but youth today are kind of bombarded and inundated with influences at a rate that we never experienced.
So this is where I get to speak about the research part a little bit. Dana Boyd is an ethnographer and a youth culture and social media expert, and she argues that what is different as a result of social media is that teens' desire for social connection and autonomy is now expressed in what we call networked publics. And these are spaces, or these spaces, I should say, are constructed through networked technology, and they emerge as a result of the intersection of people and technology. So in other words, they're communities that would not exist without technology. These spaces allow people to gather and to connect, to hang out, and to joke around via social media in particular. So these communities then are formed via social media, and they serve the same functions that publics like malls or parks did for previous generations of teenagers. Teens engage with these publics for the same reasons that they always have engaged with publics. Most notably, they want to be part of the larger net or the larger world by connecting with others and having the freedom of mobility. That's something that many, many teenagers desire. Of course, the ways that teens can interact in these environments is much different than in the past. For example, online content and expressions have really limitless longevity now, and they may be highly visible. They can be shared much easier than conversations and social interactions in the past were. But for teens, these represent an obvious part of life in a networked era. And for adults, these new opportunities for youth to engage in public life tends to be quite disconcerting. Oh, thanks for the link, Louise.
So the findings of the MacArthur Foundation, they did a 3-year study, and it was based on interview and observation, and they kind of identify the following mainstream practices of youth and kind of what's going on now for them in their coming of age. Most youth, the friendship-driven practices and interest-driven practices happen online, and they're navigating friendships, romance, authority, learning from their peers through social media and media in general, all online, as well as offline. But they have this added layer now. Youth are essentially hanging out online to develop their sense of identity. The always-on communication kind of means that youth are continually updating and uploading while rarely disconnecting. Most youth that I know and that I teach are they're using their phones until midnight, and they're talking, and they're on Facebook, or they're texting, or whatever they're doing, or they're searching something up on the internet, but they're always connected. Flirting and dating is now a normal practice both offline and online for most youth, and many will admit to feeling more confident when they communicate using technology than they would in person, but they don't always think about the importance of the in-person interactions when establishing those relationships. As we all know, sometimes it's hard to decipher sarcasm or certain context when you're emailing or texting, and that could be sometimes an issue in terms of communication. The research shows that media impacts the bonding experience for youth because they look to media to feel validated and get ideas about the identity that they want to have. And social media is a great place to test out their new identities and see how much attention and praise that they do receive. So we're talking about identity. It also goes along with this idea of identity in microframe. So almost all the time that young people spend talking to friends online, they're talking to their real-world friends for the most part. They really are talking to people that they know and kind of sharing and updating and all those things. For many young people, hanging out with friends and developing a sense of identity online is normal. Everything posted and linked and liked and uploaded, tweeted, pinned has been carefully constructed in a way that they want to create their identity or what they want others to perceive them to be. Research shows that youth are becoming increasingly dependent on the feedback they do receive from their peers, especially using social network. And it also says that youth love to post about themselves, but some have admitted to unfriending others who post too many selfies or updates. The thing that we try and encourage youth to think about is that really everything that is online and everything that youth put on their social networks, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, is a construction. It is all kind of what you want people to see. Definitely, you're untagging yourself in an unflattering picture. You're only updating when something, positive or update-worthy is happening. So it's all these choices that you're making that kind of construct your own identity. So it's easy though when youth are looking at each other's Facebook pages to see somebody else posting pictures of happiness and fun and excitement, and when you're having a bad day, sometimes you think there's something wrong with your own life because you aren't experiencing those things, and you're kind of forgetting that people only really post what they want others to see, not the stuff they don't. And leading into that concept of microframe, it's a new term that, it's kind of hinging on the viralness of a post or a picture or a comment that you put up on the internet. So if you post a video, how many hits and shares does it get? How many people search it up? So microframe really relates to, when the fans and how much they participate in the creation of celebrity status, really. And it kind of, a lot of people will choose to post things with hopes of, achieving that microframe in some way.
It probably doesn't surprise many adults, and I suspect it certainly doesn't surprise many parents and teachers, but young people spend quite a bit of time engaged with technology. On average, young people spend about 9 hours with technology per day. Now this includes time spent on the computer, watching TV, listening to music, and playing video games. But this number doesn't account for multitasking, such as watching television while chatting on the computer. If we were to separate each of these activities out individually, young people would spend more than 11.5 hours per day texting. And when you consider that our children and your students are in school for 6 or 7 hours per day and hopefully sleeping for at least 8 hours a day, that doesn't leave much time for anything else when you include their technology use. Almost all Canadians now have access to the internet, and this access is often via portable devices. Laptops, tablets, and cell phones are actually the most common ways to connect now for all students. As technology becomes more portable, though, it also becomes more difficult to monitor. So, age-old guidelines like keeping the computer in the common area of a house, for example, are very hard to enforce now. And it was certainly much easier to accomplish when everyone had one desktop computer. It's that much harder to keep technology out of the classroom as it becomes miniaturized as well. By grade 11, almost all students have their own cell phone. Half of grade 7 students and 1/4 of grade 4 students also have their own cell phone, though. And these rates of cell phone ownership represent just an extraordinary increase from 2005, when only 6% of students in grade 4 and slightly fewer than half of students in grade 11 had their own cell phone. So certainly issues related to cell phone use that we were dealing with grade 11 and 12 students, less than a decade ago, are now being faced by elementary school teachers and students. And of course, almost all of these phones are smartphones as well. In addition, it is important to be aware that texting is possible on cell phones even without texting plans by using apps like Text Plus and WhatsApp. Cell phone ownership is also affecting sleep patterns, which can, of course, affect students in the classroom as well. 39% of students who have cell phones sleep with their phone in case they receive a call or message during the night. And this trend of sleeping with one's phone increases to more than half of grade 11 students. But what I find really shocking is that 20% of grade 4 students do this as well. It's interesting, the current generation of young people is sometimes referred to as Generation Me, but sometimes I think that Generation Social would actually be more appropriate. More than 80% of 12 to 17-year-olds have at least one social networking profile, and 22% of teens check their social networks at least 10 times per day. 32% of students in grades 4 to 6 have a Facebook account, even though Facebook's own terms of use require members to be at least 13 years old to have an account. And by grade 11, 95% of Canadian teens have a Facebook account, and YouTube is Canadian youth's favorite website across all grades and genders. In addition, 63% of teens send at least one text message daily, and only 1% of teens send less than one message per week. The average 12 to 17-year-old will send about 5,000 text messages per month. And again, probably not surprisingly, older teenage girls between the ages of 14 and 17 are the most prolific texters. When it comes to rules, 53% of families have no family rules whatsoever related to access or content to media, even though 71% of youth have a TV, video game console, or a computer in their bedroom. And a large number have a smartphone as well, which means that they, of course, have private access to the internet at their fingertips daily. Most youth also admit that they keep their phone on and beside them through the night, as I said, which means that if a text comes in at 2 a.m., they're likely waking up to answer that message. It just seems that important at the time. And our research shows that youth who have at least one rule about media use, on average, use less media. So all it takes is one rule.
So a lot of us have seen this quote before, but we always think it's an important one to share. This is by Drew Altman, the president and CEO of the Kaiser Family Foundation. And he says, the amount of time young people spend with media has grown to where it's even more than a full-time work week. When children are spending this much time doing anything, we need to understand how it's affecting them, for good and bad. In addition, research conducted by the American Academy of Pediatrics showed that by the time youth graduate from secondary school, they will have spent 15,000 hours with media, while only having spent 12,000 hours in the classroom. So as adults, we all know that it is our responsibility. If they're using it this much, we have to help them critically consume and use their technology properly, especially as they're coming of age, so that they have the best experience that they possibly can.
During this next section of the webinar, we're going to talk about the many messages that youth receive on a daily basis, particularly through the media or through various types of media. We'll talk about messages about unhealthy relationships, violence, drugs, alcohol, fake, glamorous lifestyles of reality stars and celebrities, generalizations and stereotypes, expectations, and so forth. And where are these messages found? They're found in media. In sports, music, TV, movies, reality TV, gaming, internet, social media. In a time of much turmoil, which of course the teenage years are, where hormones and changes in their lives are occurring at a rapid pace, youth are developing a sense of identity and they're seeking independence. And we're going to look closely at the ways that media can impact them throughout this critical stage of their development, but also what we can do as adults to help youth realize their own value and celebrate their uniqueness as well.
So we're just going to do a quick little kind of conceptualization about society and how a lot of things that we see, and especially that youth see, puts people into boxes. And this is even more so true for youth because they're kind of learning to explore their identity and figure out who they are and who they want to be. And the years when they're doing this, it can be very stressful when you don't quite fit in with everybody else. So just looking at the gender stereotypes presented to youth every day and what are the expectations. So when we look at the girls, that they feel they have to be pretty, skinny, sexy, kind of do whatever a guy wants them to do, risk takers, maybe submissive, they're called some inappropriate names, and they're supposed to be feminine. For boys, what are the expectations? To be tough, macho, to stand up for yourself and your friends, to be muscular, athletic, in control, and you're supposed to like to party. When kids don't abide by these gender stereotypes and norms, what does that mean for them? So when they step outside the box, girls are often, actually boys and girls alike, the homophobic slurs start to come out. Boys experience slurs related to being a woman, like they're girly, they're feminine, they're told to man up, they can get ignored or excluded. They might be called weird, lazy, or a slob if they're not involved in maybe any sports or anything like that. Girls have a lot of appearance-related comments, homophobic related comments. They're called aggressive and bossy if they're confident maybe. Sexuality related comments, which is kind of a double-edged sword because either they aren't sexual enough so they're a prude, or they're too sexual so then they're a slut or a whore. They can get rumors spread about them, take advantage of, and unflattering pictures posted and forwarded. So it's unfortunate, but these stereotypes or oversimplified views of genders, or the difficulties some people endure when they don't fit into regular stereotypes. And other stereotypes include, can be cultural, can be race-oriented, ethnicity, sexual orientation. So more importantly, these are all the things that are also hit home more in the media as well. These are the kinds of things and kinds of messages we see in the media. So not only are they trying to find a sense of identity in their day-to-day lives, they're trying to fit in, and they're trying to be accepted, they're also getting bombarded with the messages, about what it means to be a girl and what it means to be a boy throughout everything they see. So they need us as adults to be their positive role models to them and show them kind of what options there are for them.
So let's keep that context in mind in the context of youth technology use more generally in mind as we look at what's become the cyclical role of media. And this helps us understand how media impacts youth quite significantly. The reality is that youth have constant access to media, and we aren't always around to stop them and say, hey, that's not right, or what kind of message is that presenting to youth? We aren't always able to do those types of media literacy teachings. This diagram that you can see on the screen now shows how the me in media is established. It's almost like a which came first, the chicken or the egg type scenario. Starting with the red box at the top there, media is constructed and it's consumed. Thoughts and decisions went into everything that we're now able to access, share, and download. As we move to the green box, expectations are placed on people, particularly youth, from what they see and hear in the media. And expectations are placed on them based on what is popular and what investors and those who are going to profit think will make money. As we move to the purple box, these expectations make youth act and behave in a certain way to be liked or to fit in. And ultimately these expectations, stereotypes, and generalizations that we see in the media will dictate what youth think is important or cool. There are actually people out there called cool hunters who are a special type of marketer who try to gauge what is cool before youth know it's cool so that they can get ahead of the curve, which makes them more profitable. Next, in the blue box, youth construct their identity accordingly, and this primarily occurs on Facebook or social networking sites based on what they see in the media. And finally, as we can see in the orange box, what becomes popular or normal on Facebook or with teens becomes the foundation for new forms of media or new media content. And people see what will make money, swapping out the popular themes, topics, and ideas, and this cycle just continues and continues. In reviewing this cycle, it's easy to see why we need to ensure that youth are decoding and deconstructing the media that they're consuming. The message is simple. Media is constructed and it gives people a particular version of reality, but not actual reality. But youth are trying to model what they see in the media, so it's our job to, the extent that we can, to educate them and make them or help them become critical consumers of media content.
All right, so to start, we're going to kind of go through some of the different influences on youth as they're coming of age. And we're going to start by looking at the influence of internet and sites such as YouTube. While it might seem like we're focusing a little bit on some of the negative, we will be providing, some positive options that youth can engage in as well, because we definitely think that media and technology are fantastic. It's just that youth nowadays are bombarded with so much more than we ever had to deal with, and in such a way that they don't have the same kind of supervision, perhaps, as we maybe did when we were growing up. So to start, the top corner, Jackass. Stunts are a huge deal with boys right now, and this kind of perpetuates the whole idea of boys being strong and daring and macho and tough. They're copycatting and daring each other to compete at things, and shows like Ridiculousness and Jackass and Careless Teens and Stunt Mania have made youth want to try stunts and record them and post them online. The other day I was working with a group of boys who were having bets about the knife game. So the knife game is where you spread your hand out on a table and your fingers are apart. You try and see how quickly and accurately you can stab the knife between each finger and go back. And then they were recording it and wanted to post it onto YouTube. And they told me about dares, about the cinnamon challenge and the saltine challenge. How much cinnamon can you put in your mouth, how many saltines, all that stuff. Running across thawing lakes and ponds for a popular stunt in some areas, and that, again, recording it. And there's even a website called www.makeadare.com where people add challenges to other people. And most often, again, these are videotaped and put up on YouTube in hopes of going viral and achieving that micro-fame status. And it's kind of interesting the other day, if you heard about what happened with Jonah Hill, the paparazzi used YouTube as a method to show Jonah Hill making a homophobic remark. But thankfully, in a positive way, while the remark is terrible, what he said, he did turn to the media as well to address the controversy, went immediately to Jimmy Kimmel and apologized, saying, quote, "If someone says something that hurts you or angers you, use me as an example of what not to do. Don't respond with hatred or anger, because you're just adding more ugliness to the world. And it kind of turned his mistake and bad decision into a great teachable moment, and that has also gone viral. And one of the biggest messages we can share with kids is to always have a good, positive digital footprint about yourself. So while he did make that comment, and it was video recorded and put on the internet, he is now kind of also put up something of himself apologizing and making sure that everybody knows that that was not okay what he did, and he wants everyone to use that as a teachable moment. And even when we think about social media, so all the icons along the bottom, we have Vine, Instagram, Snapchat, Skype, Pinterest, Twitter, and Facebook. All social media, popular top social media sites identified and used by youth. These are the sites that youth are using to test out their ideas, to look at what's popular, to check how attractive they are. Often you'll see, if you're on Facebook and you have, there's women or girls or daughters or anything like that, they might be putting things like offering to give TBHs or to be honest posts. They're asking for ratings on the pictures that they're putting up. There's a lot of selfies, pictures of just themselves, and they want people to kind of comment on them. They're basically recording their current life moments and posting them online so that everybody can give them feedback about their identity, their looks, and all that stuff. Vine is a really popular kind of video recording. You can take a quick video and you post it, and the new catchphrase that kids say is to do it for the Vine. And they'll record something funny or sometimes even embarrassing, and it'll get posted up there. The biggest thing, again, is that we want youth to know that, unfortunately, what we might have done that was a silly, stupid stunt or a funny video, or sorry, a funny moment back before there were these capacities to record, it never, I'm trying to save it, sorry. It was never able to be saved forever. And when they're posting it up on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or any of those sites, basically it can be possibly there forever. If you said something inappropriate, it might have been out of people's minds, but now it can be recorded and posted and forwarded on forever. So another message we're trying to encourage kids to remember. So here are some positive websites and positive social networking things that have happened, and showing how youth really are the new future of our society. Internet and YouTube have become places where youth can vocalize their feelings and express their opinions. Youth are supporting social justice movements, taking to social media to share their feelings about political issues, environmental issues, and much more. Everybody remembers Coney 2012. Where youth everywhere posted and tweeted about it. It was all over Facebook. Everyone shared the short film that brought awareness to the abuse and killing of the children in East and Central Africa. The video went viral. According to the stats, as of March 1st, 2014, the film received over 99 million views and 1.3 million likes on YouTube. So, the world took to social media to get out, to be activists. In addition, the top left picture is of 6 Iranians who were arrested recently for appearing in a video singing along to the song Happy, which we're going to talk about later, by Pharrell Williams. And I guess, unfortunately, because of where they live, the 3 women and men that were lip-syncing, it came across, they weren't wearing their headscarves. So it went against Iran's Islamic law, and so it kind of caused outrage in the area. Just because they, I guess, had gone against, or they had done something inappropriate. But the world took to social media about this as well, and on Twitter, even Pharrell Williams himself said that it was beyond sad that these kids were arrested for trying to spread happiness, and he tweeted that.
Thanks. I'm just going to add from that last slide as well to check out thefuntheory.com, which is a really cool site dedicated to the thought that something as simple as fun is the easiest way to change people's behavior to the better, for the better. It's a really great website. There you go. Let's talk about TV and reality TV then for a moment. By age 18, the average youth will have spent or will have witnessed 200,000 violent acts and 70,000 murders on television by age 18. Nearly 2 out of 3 primetime TV programs contain violence, averaging 6 violent acts per hour. And I mean, these are just absolutely staggering numbers, particularly when we think about how often youth are watching TV by themselves. Not only that, but TV offers a variety or quite a range of messages for youth. The Simpsons is, of course, the ultimate representation of stereotypes on television, but Glee is probably a close second. And it's kind of ironic because what started as a series that was designed to promote the underdog has turned into a show that reinforces all of the regular negative stereotypes in high school. You know, we see characters like the dumb jock, the sexy cheerleader, the misfit choir or glee club member, and the stoner students. And they're just stereotypically represented now in that program. The teachers segregate into their departments, with the phys ed teachers not respecting the arts teachers. The show models all of the general stereotypes that we could think of, really. And because of its popularity, it then normalizes those types of relationships. The show Pretty Little Liars is built solely on keeping secrets and then exposing those secrets. But it's all within a focus of being seductive and manipulative. There are reality shows, of course, like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Gypsy Sisters, Real World, Survivor, Big Brother, and many others that, there's a reality TV show on virtually all the time now, it seems. The success of these shows directly relates to the amount of bullying, gossip, and conflict that they are able to create. Let's, look at Gypsy Sisters, for example, which is a spin-off from the show My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, which focused more on fist fights than wedding dresses. In that particular show, the Stanley family was featured, and it became a hit because of the conflict and cruelty, the backstabbing, the verbal and physical assault, rumor spreading, and so much more that came along with their appearances. So TLC gave them their own show. Why not, right? The women in the show pride themselves on physically fighting to handle arguments. And the show is back for another season with even more drama and violence because viewers love it. And because the fighting, arguing, and violence is a standard for reality television. What youth don't always consider is that reality television is scripted. Yes, the Learning Channel, exactly. Reality shows are designed in ways to get the most ratings possible. Reality stars are called cast members on their shows. There are often multiple takes for scenes to ensure that, they have the best camera angles and the best outcomes. And these are highly produced television shows to get the ratings that they're going to put people in situations that create conflict and tension. But you think that what they're seeing is real, and they copy what they see on TV. Shows like MTV's Teen Mom make the idea of teen pregnancy glamorous, and youth get paid a significant amount of money to be on the show. And even though the fame and the money causes problems in their lives, shows like this continue to be produced. A lot of young girls think that the Teen Mom cast member Farrah is someone to look up to, but do we really want our children looking up to Farrah, who recently released a book about Christian parenting, while at the same time releasing her 3-part porn series, which she was paid $1 million to do? There's some irony in that, of course. That being said, there are many positive shows to watch. Some are reality and some are scripted. One idea is to do things together as a family, designating a TV night and pre-recording the show or movie so that you can fast forward through commercials or pause to talk about what messages or content you're seeing. While Glee does perpetuate some stereotypes, it also addresses some issues that teens may be facing, and it's even quoted in the movie 21 Jump Street for transforming high schools in some ways. which includes higher levels of tolerance and caring about the environment and getting good grades. Modern Family, while it is negative in some ways, it's great because it doesn't just show the typical nuclear family. It shows many different versions of what a family means to kids today. And shows like Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown focus on food while deconstructing myths and ideas about places all over the world. For example, there was a recent episode where he was in Detroit and he explored the past, present, and future of the Motor City. He stepped into the lives of current citizens of Detroit to see the glory days of the past at the famed Packard plant, the current state of the city's urban decay, and the promise of the future in the citizens who are rebuilding their community. And he does that through food. Reality shows like The Taste and The Voice are less about who is behind the work and more about the food or the music itself. And those who move ahead are mentored and pushed to learn and achieve more and more. So there are certainly many negative messages out there in media, but there are positive ones as well on TV and in reality TV.
So next we're going to talk about music, and I teach dance in the evenings, and I teach to mostly girls ages about 5 to 18. So for me, music is a huge deal. I spend a lot of time listening to music with them, and I want to have good positive music that has a positive message and with role models that are kind of inspiring them to do other things rather than the messages I'm going to share with you now. So I'm just going to go through a few of the most popular songs that we all kind of know and hear on the radio, thinking about just even the titles of songs. So let's think about Dirty Pictures by Taio Cruz and Kesha, and the whole issue with sexting nowadays. We got Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke and the whole issue with Miley Cyrus. Drunken Love by Beyonce, Work Bitch by Britney Spears, and more. Often we sing lyrics and we watch music videos without kind of really listening to what messages are given and what words are used. There's tons of messages about unhealthy relationships, risky sexual behavior, violence, substance use, abuse, stereotypes, so much more. But it's all done in a way that is appealing to youth and makes them want to mimic kind of what they hear and they see. Case in point about the twerking snowball, you see twerking happening in the Blurred Lines in the awards ceremony, and then it shows up in Glee, it shows up in lots of different places. People it showed up on Snooki and JWoww, which is a reality show, a spin-off of Jersey Shore. It shows up everywhere. So it's just these messages and becomes something that becomes popular. The content in music videos just can be not a positive message for our young people today. It can tell women kind of how they should act and what they can expect, but it can also tell men, what might be acceptable or how they should be behaving as well. Just even thinking about Eminem and Rihanna's Love the Way You Lie song and video. It's a song about domestic violence taking place, and the message is reinforced each time you hear that song, especially remembering how popular it was. It's interesting, though, that the research shows that when youth watch a music video, the message they view are reinforced each time they listen to the song afterwards. So if they're seeing messages of unhealthy relationships or violence or unhealthy sexuality, then that message is subconsciously repeated every time they're just listening to the song. It is very, and even Sabi, I have at the top left, it's Sabi's song Wild Heart. The lyrics say, leave us both with bruises, neither one of us wanted each other to say goodbye. Both of us kept hitting, kept on screaming, and we don't know why, we're in love. A message blatantly about choosing to accept abuse when you're in love. And what about other songs? I'm just going to read you a few more lyrics here. Work Bitch by Britney Spears says that if you want a hot body and you want a Maserati, you better work. And it kind of perpetuates the whole stereotype that women who are strong and confident also have to be kind of bitches about it. Lady Gaga's song, Do What You Want to My Body, it says, you can't have my heart and you won't use my mind, but do what you want with my body, suggesting to young men that it's okay to not care about a woman's brains, and suggesting to young women that it's normal or acceptable to just have sex or let someone use them for their body, and agreeing to kind of being objectified. Drunk in Love by Beyonce. How many girls love Beyonce right now? How many boys love Beyonce? And here's this song where she's saying, I've been drinking, I get filthy when that liquor's in me, just woke up in the kitchen, saying how'd this happen last night, all I remember is our beautiful bodies grinding up in the club, drunk in love. And it just, again, reinforces that it's sexy and attractive, and it glorifies the whole idea of getting drunk and hooking up with somebody and possibly not remembering it in the morning. Two more. Wild Wild Love by Pitbull is a very popular song right now. And it says, to love, to get wild, dirty, freaky, nasty. And it tells you that in order to have a good time now, you have to be kind of freaky behind closed doors. Nothing's kind of enough anymore. And lastly, Pumped Up Kicks, which is a bit older song, but it's super catchy. Lots of kids love it. Lots of adults love it, actually. It's always all over the radio. But the chorus says, all the other kids with the pumped up kicks, some nice running shoes, better outrun my gun. You know, and it's all these kind of messages that kids are hearing in these songs that are just reinforced. And most of the time, maybe some youth aren't listening to it, but maybe they're watching a video and kind of hearing a message. A lot of kids can, you know, listen to the lyrics, and they are kind of listening to what's said. And the funny thing is they kind of like it that adults listen to the songs and they think that they don't understand what the lyrics actually say, and they kind of think that they're smarter, at least the students that I work with. Sometimes we'll giggle if a song comes on and they'll say, we were driving here and Blurred Lines was on and my dad had it blaring in the car. And I think to myself, like, what is that really showing them? And they're kind of giggling at the fact that their parents don't know what the content of that song is. So it's just something to kind of consider. But then there are so many wonderful songs, and I've just got 3 here. Most importantly, you know, Lady Gaga, I just want to say one thing about her. She does do a lot of important work to raise awareness about equality in her personal life and in her music. She has, you know, the song Born This Way. I think what I find the hardest about Lady Gaga is her songs are catching and entertaining. It's just she sends so many mixed messages when she has one song that's about celebrating who you are, no matter what you are, no matter what you like to do. And then the next song that comes out is all about, you know, kind of forget about being intelligent, just let's be physical instead. And she does do so many great things in the humanities area. So, you know, but it is a nice, we're able to have those discussions with kids, especially older kids, so they kind of learn, you know, we can hear what she has to say, but also people make mistakes and they put out music maybe that isn't appropriate. We also just had Pharrell Williams. His song Happy is one of the top on the charts, and it's fantastic. It's a 3-minute song of positive, inspiring, feet tapping, hand clapping fun. Great song for families, great song for anybody, and you kind of can't help but singing along to it when it's on. And lastly, John Legend's All of Me. It's a song that talks about the importance of loving someone unconditionally, all the good and the bad about them, and just being supportive and caring. And it's a song that he actually wrote for his wife on their wedding, that he sung to her on their wedding day. So it's a very positive and uplifting message about love. And one great idea that I'd like to share just about music is to kind of create a music playlist that only has appropriate songs and lyrics. And it's a really neat idea because then you can get talking about what the lyrics actually are and choosing the ones that have the best messages to share and to be able to enjoy with your family.
So Shanna teaches dance in the evenings, and and follows music pretty closely. I enjoy sports and follow sports fairly closely myself. And many young people, and especially young boys, but many young girls as well, look up to professional athletes and consider them to be role models on and off the field or the playing surface. How many times have we asked, you know, young people who their hero is, and they've named a sports figure or an athlete, right? Unfortunately, many who are terrific on the field send less than desirable messages off the field. Just a few examples here on the slide. Aaron Hernandez, for example, a Pro Bowl tight end with the New England Patriots of the NFL, is currently on trial for allegedly murdering a former friend in 2013, and he has been charged in relation to a 2012 double murder in Boston. And just to top it off, a little cherry on top, a lawsuit is currently pending against him for shooting another friend. So a lovely role model. Ryan Braun was the 2011 NL MVP and is a 5-time MLB All-Star. After categorically denying having ever used steroids, he was suspended for 65 games plus the entire postseason after he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. And Johnny Manziel, who is better known as Johnny Football, is a Heisman Trophy winner, which is an award that goes to the best player in college football in the U.S., and he was recently drafted in the first round of the NFL draft by the Cleveland Browns. Unfortunately, he's also well known for his partying, and he was arrested in his freshman year for getting into a bar fight and for using fake IDs. So these are some of the heroes or the idols to young people, and these are the types of things that they're doing away from the field or the court or the diamond. Many other examples of bad role models proliferate. Manti Te'o, for example, a standout football player at Notre Dame who now plays for the San Diego Chargers, faked the existence and death of a girlfriend, and he spawned the term catfishing. Richie Incognito was kicked off the Miami Dolphins last year for bullying a teammate. Adam Pac-Man Jones has been largely ousted from the NFL for his legal troubles and his fondness of guns. Luis Suarez and John Terry are two of the bigger stars of the British Premier League and soccer. They're both absolutely overtly racist. Kobe Bryant and Ben Roethlisberger have both been accused of sexually assaulting women, and, well, to be honest, I think Tiger Woods just kind of speaks for himself. Sadly, many of these athletes are quickly forgiven, or their behavior is overlooked because of what they can contribute on the field. In real life, such behavior, the behavior that these athletes, the ways they tend to act, it's just unacceptable. And most people are not so quickly forgiven for berating, assaulting, or demeaning others, or by breaking the law. Athletes tend to get away with these things. Real people don't. But again, following the trend, there are good examples as well, or following the path we've been taking tonight, there are good examples. As teachers and adults, it's our job to parse out the bad and highlight the good. Research shows that when adults discuss negative images and messages with children and teenagers, the harmful impact of those messages is minimized, and Shanna just spoke a little bit about that. When adults ignore those negative messages, youth deem them to be acceptable. So as I said, fortunately there are some, or many, very positive role models in sports. Tim Duncan is known as a model citizen on and off the basketball court. He has his own foundation, and he donates thousands of dollars a year to help with health education initiatives. Roger Federer is perhaps the best tennis player of all time, holding 16 Grand Slam titles. He was appointed a Goodwill Ambassador by UNICEF and directly aided victims of Hurricane Katrina and the Haiti earthquake. Eli Manning is a two-time Super Bowl champion who also started a campaign to donate $2.5 million to the University of Mississippi's Medical Center. He spoke out publicly against the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And he has an annual charity golf event to raise money for the blind. As an NFL kicker, Chris Kluwe, who most recently played for the Minnesota Vikings, publicly spoke out in support of same-sex marriage and equality. Jason Collins became the first publicly gay athlete to play in a major North American pro sports league, and the Burke family, including former Maple Leafs GM Brian Burke and his son Patrick Burke, started the You Can't Play social activism campaign that is aimed at eradicating homophobia in sports. There are positive athletic role models out there, and certainly you're absolutely right, Louise, many female role models as well. Clara Hughes does fantastic work around mental health and destigmatizing mental health. There are many other great role models out there, male and female, but they often don't receive the same press as the poorer role models. Clara Hughes perhaps is the exception to that, but she's done it through a massive tour, and still hasn't received the same attention that somebody like Tiger Woods received. So we may have to look a bit harder to find some of these positive role models, is the point there. Let's take a moment to think about some of the typical video game characters and the messages that youth receive in video games. In male characters, we often see big muscles and tough-looking guys and body slamming, fighting, reinforcing to young boys that they need to be tough, strong, and able to physically fight somebody. In female characters, we tend to see very tiny waists, and breasts and butts bigger than their heads. Most of the time women are in bikinis and men don't have shirts. In certain games, women are used as a sexual prize for the male characters. Other games glorify killing females, and violence against women. When women are in a video game, for example, in WWE games, wrestling games, they often strip each other to win because clearly that's how women fight. In Grand Theft Auto, which is one of the games that glorifies killing women, the amount of sex, violence, death, prostitution, stealing, and so forth is unreal. It's the foundation of the game. With this in mind, let's look at the poster up in the top right corner of your screen of the slide for the video game and movie Hitman, where the tagline reads, "Beautifully executed." If you look closely, the lingerie-clad woman has a bullet hole in her forehead. So does that mean that beautifully executed is when a woman in lingerie is dead, yet still sexy? We have to ask ourselves what these messages are telling our children, and we have to encourage them to not fall into the trap of buying into stereotypes and norms. As teachers and adults, we can point out some of the good games as well. And there still are some good games out there, and a great way to use these is to find family-friendly games that everyone can enjoy. Some of our top choices are Rock Band, Mario Kart 8, Just Dance. Many of the Sims games are quite good. Family Game Night for Wii by Hasbro is a great way to connect as a family sometimes. And sports games can also be good as well. If you look at the ESRB ratings that are on these games, the E for everybody is usually a good sign, and it indicates that the games are probably age appropriate for most people.
So this brings us to our last topic, and this is marketing, advertising. And this one scares me the most because I feel like this is the area that youth are targeted specifically, because it kind of relates to how they feel and how they feel about themselves and what they want to feel, which is attractive to somebody else or interesting to somebody else or part of fitting in and belonging. It's important to consider that kids see more than 250,000 commercials aimed at their appearance by age 17, which is staggering. How could youth not feel like they're being told to act and look a certain way? And most messages in these advertisements aren't about selling the product, really. They're really about selling the feeling you have if you buy the product, or the life, or how life will be if you act or copy the certain behavior shown in the ad. Whether it's an advertisement for a movie, a product, a song, a video, it's all the same. People who are marketing these products and these shows and these celebrities are doing it in a way to kind of make you feel like they could be that or they want to be that, and this is how to do it. On the top right of the screen, we can just take a look at the tagline of the advertisement for a popular prime television show, Gossip Girl. The tagline is "A nasty piece of work," and some of the other taglines taglines that have been used are, quote, mind-blowingly inappropriate, every parent's nightmare, and very bad for you, each with an equally sexualized image that is presented with that. So just what does it suggest to youth, and what kinds of words are specifically chosen in these taglines? What is being marketed to youth? Is it the show, or is it sex? And that these people will feel, you watch the show, you're part of the show, this is the kind of way to act if you want to look and have this kind of a thing happen in your life. Down in the bottom left corner, I do appreciate American Apparel's message about human rights, and I'll share another shirt that they have on the next slide about equality and human rights. I just wish that their ad campaigns wouldn't sexualize young girls and boys. And if you have a woman standing like that with a tagline, it fits. It just, again, it's kind of suggesting something that you could show that in a very different way with a very different tagline. So it's just they're pushing kind of sexualized ideas and hypersexualization onto younger and younger consumers. Even Abercrombie now has a line of push-up bras and bikinis for girls ages 7 to 12. Also, Abercrombie only really uses chiseled models, male models, and it's funny because their clothes are sized smaller to basically avoid larger people purchasing their clothes. So they're really only designed for kind of certain body types, and kind of then perpetuates the whole stereotype around the kinds of people that wear and support a store like Abercrombie and Fitch. Even if we look at the top left on the screen, this is the adrenaline action figures for wrestling, and even just looking alone at, there's a woman in a bikini and in a crop top, and then there's a man with a million abs and great pecs and a small little bathing suit kind of thing. It's all macho-looking muscular guy, skinny fit girl, both scantily clad. Again, perpetuating those same stereotypes to youth and men and women. The last thing I want to bring up is the Dove campaign. And Dove and their campaigns for real beauty are fantastic, and they're kind of changing, they're trying to change the current and narrow definition of beauty is what they say. A spokesperson at Dove says that they believe that to make a real difference, they must take action and contribute in ways that will help women and girls celebrate their individual beauty, which is a fantastic message. And when you think about it, that's exactly what everybody wants, is to celebrate their individual beauty. Unfortunately, Dove is also, or Unilever owns both Dove and Axe. And if I said to you the word Axe body spray, you're not going to think about, women and girls celebrating their individual beauty. What you're going to think about is, men wearing Axe to be sexually appealing to women, and the kinds of commercials and advertisements that Axe puts out about being, it's very sexualized. So they're very contradictory messages from the same head company, but they market to what will sell and gain attention. Men will buy Axe to be sexually appealing to women, and women will buy Dove because they think it enhances their real beauty. And youth are constantly bombarded with these messages and influences about sex, how to be attractive and how to attract, and these constant mixed messages from so many different areas. But there are lots of positive things that we want to bring up as well. So as I was saying, American Apparel, down in the middle row, there's a t-shirt there with a girl that says legalize gay marriage. And they do have some great marketing campaigns. There's also t-shirts that say, Star Wars t-shirts that, the Blast Cancer campaign shirts. So Yoda stands up to cancer. Those are fantastic. At the bottom left is a t-shirt from a company called Unlearn, which is a great kind of grassroots company, and it's all the messages on the t-shirts have important kind of slogans, and this says teach peace with all the kind of different religious symbols you can have. They have ones on skin color, they have ones on sexuality, they have lots of different great t-shirts. They even have a t-shirt with fish swimming all one direction and one fish swimming the other way that says one of these things doesn't belong, or one of these things is thinking, or it's all these messages about how you could be the individual in the situation, and we can teach peace through everybody getting along. I also want to point out the top two images because this kind of relates to photoshopping. Lorde, who is a music artist on the left-hand side, tweeted this picture of herself. It's a before and after being photoshopped. And if you read it, she says, I find this curious. 2 photos from today, one edited so my skin is perfect and one real. Remember, flaws are okay. And she actually shows the top is her edited and the bottom one is her, where you can actually see that she has some blemishes and stuff like that on her skin, and her hair is a little bit different color as well. So it just shows, it's okay to be her, but she has been photoshopped, and she's kind of raising awareness about it. Same thing with Faith Hill on the Red Book cover. If you see on the left-hand side of her picture, all the spots that she was touched up, so her arms were made skinnier, her collarbone was airbrushed, her lines around her face are gone, the lines under her eyes are gone. And so we see this, what we get is the image on the front of a magazine cover, which is totally unattainable because it's not actually real. Her entire pretty much body, and she was beautiful to begin with, was totally photoshopped to make that magazine cover. But it's just amazing that, these women, and I'm sure men have done the same thing, come out and they are kind of raising awareness that are saying, this isn't me, I was photoshopped, and it's okay to look yourself. Otherwise, it's just unattainable.
So, based on what we've said, determining what appropriate content isn't always easy, and we absolutely recognize that. So it's great when we do have websites like Common Sense Media available that have done a lot of the work for us. The link that's found at the bottom of this slide, commonsensemedia.org, it's an absolutely great resource. This website provides adults, or anyone really, with information on movies, TV shows, games, music, and more. Common Sense Media allows visitors or users to rate media in a very easy to understand format of red, yellow, green, red meaning inappropriate, green meaning appropriate. And you can also identify which ages the content is appropriate for versus inappropriate for. So it gives an exact age rather than the more popular or more mainstream PG-13 system, which certainly has a number of flaws. So for example, something might be rated green for 16-year-olds, but red for 12-year-olds. And you can read and give your own reviews about various media as well. And what's great is Common Sense Media also breaks all of their ratings down into categories, and it focuses on the extent of physical violence, inappropriate language, the educational value of a given program, the alcohol, drug, or tobacco content, sexual content, and it examines some of the underlying messages that youth will take away from those. It's both user-driven, and it has a team of expert raters who assign these ratings and pull out these key content areas. All this information together helps us to determine whether or not a particular type of media or media program is appropriate for youth. There are also on that website, commonsensemedia.org, lesson plans for educators, professional product reviews, and you can sign up for an e-newsletter to get regular updates. I do get the e-newsletter, and it's not too often. I think it's maybe once a month or something like that. They send it out with some new updates. So really, it's just a great free, not-for-profit source and resource that is available for all of us to bookmark and to check out when we are wondering about something related to the media or looking for lesson plans or something of that nature. It's a terrific resource.
And speaking of lesson plans, there's 3 that we just want to highlight to you that we've been involved in that are available free of charge on the internet. The first one is a grant we were doing with the Canadian Women's Foundation, and we wrote lesson plans on the representation of youth in media. So it's just a short little mini unit. It's 3 lessons. You could extend it. It's a lot of content crammed into 3 high school period length lessons. So you could make it as long as you want to. You could tone some of the content down, but it does talk about the representation of youth in media similarly to what we kind of just went through today. Great resources and exercises for youth to be able to kind of start to identify these things, looking at music lyrics and kind of analyzing the media advertisements that they see and hear and those types of things. The second is we received over the years a couple of Ministry of Education grants, and there were a team of writers from various places in Ontario that were involved in the impact of media violence on children and adolescent media literacy project. And this is a kind of a compilation of unit plans and lesson plans for JK all the way through to grade 12. There's broken down pretty much like JK in kindergarten, grade 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or sorry, 4 to 6, 7 and 8, and then high school they have lesson plans in English, in leadership, I think it's even in social science, things like that. But just again talking about media violence on children and adolescents and very age-appropriate content. So maybe it's about fairy tales for the younger ones. Maybe it's about action figures. It might be about music. Some of the lessons and the content in the lessons and maybe the examples are a bit dated. I think our last grant finished in 2011, but the kind of substance within the lesson is great if you want it for all the different topics. And again, these are available free of charge on that website, youthrelationships.org, which is actually our website as well for Ryan and I. And the last one is RCMP. We were hired to write some cyberbullying and bullying lessons. So there's a lesson for each of the kind of grade divisions, grades 3 and under, 4 to 6, 7 and 8, and then high school. And just talking about, again, social media, safe strategies for using social media and for, doing things online, all that stuff. And last but not least, we just have a few suggested resources that we find are helpful and interesting. We like going to other than Common Sense Media, which is both, I think, Ryan and I, one of our favorite sites to visit. Mediasmarts.ca is great. It has information on digital literacy, cyberbullying, and cybersecurity. Need Help Now has information and resources for dealing with sexting or exploitation. Prevnet.ca has lots of research studies and statistics, resources for teachers and parents and youth. And then our website, we have actually now a community of practice where we're hoping to kind of encourage people to come and share their own resources and kind of post and be able to kind of have a network about all these kinds of topics and healthy relationships topics. So there's kind of a central area where everyone can go and talk about things. And that's it for Ryan and I.
Wow, that was a lot of information, and thank you so much for all those resources there at the end. Jeff and John, I'm wondering if you have any questions, maybe about the resources or about different approaches that you might bring to this issue in the classroom or something along those lines. While you guys think about that, I can see John's typing. Shanna and Ryan, I'm wondering if a teacher, dependent on the grade level, if a teacher feels like they would like to begin to address some of these things in the classroom, is there, I imagine a lot of these lesson plans might point to it as well, but is there a certain entry method, I guess you could say, for opening that conversation, with the students to kind of get a dialogue going so that they're more open to having those conversations and maybe sharing some of their thoughts and perspectives on it? Have you had certain ways of doing that have been successful? I've heard stories from other educators of ways that really work for them.
I find that sometimes I'll just kind of start off by asking what they think of something, whether it's a current event story or, like the Jonah Hill story, like what did you think about that, and kind of opening the dialogue about it. I do talk a lot about music lyrics, and I, sometimes, especially when I'm teaching dance or when I'm at school, like somebody will talk to me about a certain song and I'll ask them, what do they think of those lyrics? What do they think that message is? I think I just ask a lot of questions maybe and just kind of get youth to start talking about it. I agree that, they may not think that the media affects them, and we can't demonstrate that it does or it doesn't, right? Because I would say growing up, maybe it didn't affect me either, but I also had a lot of conversations with my family growing up about different things. We would talk about The Simpsons, and I don't think it affected me maybe the same way because of those conversations. So I do think that, when I raise awareness about a song, I'll get a student that comes a few days later that's like, oh, I went home and I listened to this other song, and you should hear the content that's in that, and I couldn't believe it. And it just kind of really hit home maybe more with them after we started the conversation. Not sure whether that helps, but...
No, that certainly gets things going, and I know you had certainly mentioned that a lot of the purpose around, doing lessons and having these discussions with students is to start prompting, some critical thinking skills on their part, and having them begin to evaluate things themselves. And do you find that that at a certain point you start to see students initiate that critical reflection themselves? Like, I'm wondering, if you do one lesson on one day at one time, do you find that starts things, or do you find that it's important to have this be a regular, ongoing thing, even if it doesn't necessarily fit into your normal lesson plans, but that you can find those opportunities to keep those discussions going and make it work, because you are engaging with kids' critical thinking skills, which is something that is part of a lot of the different strands of the curriculum. Is that something that that you see develops as kids get exposed to it?
Definitely, and I find that there's lots of opportunities for teachable moments. Even just listening to the radio on the way to work in the morning, I'll hear something and then I'll quickly Google it and be able to kind of talk more about it. I also find that if you have I have one or two that really pick up on the messages, and they're quick to kind of identify something to somebody else. Or, for example, when I hear somebody say something like, "That's so gay," or "That's so retarded," immediately I say, "Choose a better word," because we've had the conversation about why not to use those words. And then I hear students doing the same thing in the hallway when I'm just, or in the dance studio when I'm just walking by. I'll hear them, and so I don't know what was actually said. I just hear "choose a better word" coming out of their mouth. So somewhere along the line, things are resonating, and for some faster, for some slower, but even if they're kind of giving the message and sharing the message and educating their peers, even if it's just one or two students, then that kind of gets the message out there further and kind of makes people start to really evaluate what's going on and what they're learning and what they're seeing online even.
I'm just going to address John's first question, which Shanna touched on already a little bit about kids saying that this doesn't affect them. I'm the researcher, Shanna's the teacher, so Shanna's better for answering the in-class questions like your second one, John. But just in reference to your first one about it not affecting kids, it may not affect all kids, all students as well. When we're talking about this, we're talking about it from a research perspective, of course, and we're not looking at individual students. We're looking at students in aggregate. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all students are negatively impacted by media. It affects some more than others, but these are just general trends. So I know that doesn't necessarily help you at all there, but I'll turn it over to Shanna if she has an answer to your.
I have a good friend, Katie Cole, who did a session a couple weeks ago for OTF, and she teaches media studies a lot, and one of her strategies is she gets the kids to create a lot. She'll get them to put together a mashup of media, maybe it'll be like movie violence or a mashup of inappropriate song lyrics, but she gets them to engage that way. So they're still kind of creating, but they're also learning. So they have to research and prove to her that these are unhealthy relationships or whatever it is, and they tell her all the songs, but then at the same time they've created this either video slideshow or kind of dubstep song or whatever they've done. They find that they're still producing, and she says it helps her as well because it enables her to kind of stay up on task with what's going on, because it's so hard to keep up with what the youth are able to learn and see and experience. So that's her fastest way to be able to kind of get up to date on it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your for time and for answering those questions. If anything comes up, don't hesitate to contact Shanna or Ryan. There's their information there. I did post it up in the chat as well, and it will be on the website for the session page for today. And so here is our feedback link. And let me grab it, I'll drop it in the chat too. And we certainly do appreciate your participation tonight, and thank you so much, Shanna and Ryan, for giving of your time and sharing those resources and You know, the research that's behind it absolutely really certainly backs things up that this is a real issue, and it really is impacting our kids and how they view themselves and therefore how they grow and develop. So thank you again, and we will be sending out a survey shortly that will go by email. We'll also post it to Twitter that asks for general feedback on the OTF Connects program and suggestions for our direction for next year. And so we would be thrilled to have you fill that out and get that back to us. And we also want you to know, and Jeff and John, I think you already do know, that even though OTF Connects is ending and you don't have that type of PD for the summer, that we do have our summer institutes as well as a technology conference that just opened for registration this week. And so that particular conference and that orange link, you can click on it directly. I'm noticing now that half my links are all buried in a big pile of other links here. Here we go. Here's the technology conference link into the chat. And that conference is specifically for teachers who are new to using technology in the classroom. So not for the technology leads and the people that have been using and refining their skills, but for people who understand the importance of connecting the kids that way, as well as increasing their own capacity for teaching through technology. So that conference is for you folks. And of course, the Summer Institutes have quite a wide variety with focus on a variety of focuses, foci, including math, technology, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit perspectives, and there's that one there. And so please go and take a look, register if it's appropriate for you, and let your colleagues know. There's posters that should be in your schools now. If you don't see a poster stuck up in your staff room, go ask and see who received it. It's most likely to be one of the union reps, or it could have just gone to your main office, and check on that. And certainly follow us on Twitter, check us on Facebook. There's lots of ways to find OTF and all the services, including the professional development opportunities that we offer for our members. So thank you again for super participation throughout the year, and we will see you next fall.